Hey, beautiful ones and lovers. I just wanted to speak about imprinted stories. I'm just working on that a little bit for a project, a book that I'm just slowly working on, just slowly and peacefully at my own time. And I thought that this would be, well, my soul guided me to maybe just do a little video and put out explaining it. So here I am. So I just wanted to chat a little bit about imprinted stories and how they show up from our early age. So from our early age, from childhood, we have what we call imprinted stories in our holographic field that has been placed there by, well, essentially by others, but we have chosen to imprint these upon ourselves and carried them around with us for years and for the rest of our lives until we realize it and have awareness of it, and then we collapse those imprinted stories and we might make new ones, but of the positive, more higher from a higher consciousness vibration. So imprinted stories are stories that have been told to us that entered then our holographic field because we took that on as our own story, and they were things that came from other people's opinions, impressions of us, how they saw us and what they thought of us, and then projecting that onto us, and then we, especially from childhood up, we took that on as our truth. And we thought that's who we were, but they were really just assumptions from others and a misconception that we decided that was the truth. So this is really powerful. I mean, I know these are just words that you're hearing right now, but if you really take this in, it is very, very powerful, because this goes right down, that's created the domino effect of where we are now in our life, and why so many people in the world are talking about healing and let's, deprogram ourselves and let's remove those negative thoughts and timelines and things we've told ourselves, etc., etc. And this all comes from these imprinted stories that we have, that we've allowed to come in and store in our field. And we've taken that on in our subconscious, and we've taken that on to think that that's who we really are. This has affected our worthiness. So when people have told us things when we were children, and it could be anything as simple as, at school, oh, you're dumb, or, you're not pretty, or you're not this, or you're not that, all those programmed things that society have, poured into us about you have to look a certain way and be a certain way and talk a certain way and understand things a certain way and, conform a certain way, which of course, well, if anyone's read my book, that's all out the fucking window, because I was nothing like that at all. And I was always pushing against the system because I was connected to myself, my spirituality and who I am, and living between the two worlds. So I knew that all of this human earthly programming was just a whole lot of crap and BS, and like, where did this come from? However, when we live in it, we may not want to be of it, or even just our soul is choosing to not be of it from an early age, but we still are living in that 3D programmed world. So when other kids and adults and parents and things around us are saying certain things to us and projecting from their own wounding and their own jealousy and envy and, all the rest of it, their unworthiness, when they're projecting that onto us to try and make themselves feel better, it does wound us, and it does come into we think, oh, wow, okay, well, we must be that way because this person said we are, our parents treated us a certain way or something, and so we took that on because, especially from our parents or guardians, they're our unconditional love that we see, that's how it teaches us. The masculine and feminine energy, as I've talked about this, it teaches what we learn from them is what shows up, what we know of to be in the masculine and feminine, and that's what we think how we should be, or how something should go, or how we should treat somebody, or whatever. So these are just merely stories that have been created from others that have imprinted on us. And we've taken that story on and said that's who we are, that's the type of person we are, that's what we look like, that's whether we're good enough for this or that. And this is the real deal. A lot of people talk about this stuff, but you really got to break it down and see that we've created this ourselves. Now, obviously, because we're so programmed from a young age, we're not in the awareness to just say, oh, you know what, that's just their projection. Oh, that's just what they think of us. Oh yeah, well, I love myself. I am a beautiful divine spirit of light. I am not like that, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're not really in the consciousness space to really say that when we're younger, or even a lot of us that might never be in that conscious state as they grow up into adults, if they're still programmed and connected to that programming of the 3D world, and they're still living from that programming, and essentially their unworthiness. And that's why we're programmed to live from fear, live in lack, and live in unworthiness. And, you can't have the lack without the unworthiness, so they go hand in hand. So just a little reminder that to whether you're doing healing work or studying healing work or, in any capacity, to start to break down those imprinted stories. And most of them will come from an early age, so go back into where you were when you were a child. Have an awareness of it and a higher consciousness. When we have a higher consciousness and awareness of it, and we can become the observer of it, we can collapse the story. Until then, we will keep living and perpetuating the story and living from that story unconsciously when we don't even know we're doing that. We don't even know that's a program we're running, and we're living from that. And in lots of ways, it doesn't matter really how many other things in your life you've evolved through and becoming from a higher consciousness. If you're still running an old story, coming from some type of unworthiness or whatever, I mean, they show up everywhere. So you have to be aware of where in your life you are working from now and what you're creating in your life now that are still coming from these hidden imprinted stories that are in your holographic field. And once you become that observer, you really step out of that and you say, wow, I can see how that could have happened like that. Then you collapse the story. Because it's just stupid. It's just, it's just a story that was being created, and it's not truth. It's not the truth. And I've had to do this with myself. And just one example is that it being the second child, and my brother is older than me, and my mum's programming was always that the male sort of not so much knows more, but the male's protective more. And in my situation, it was she felt that he knew more, and he was, it's that old template. And so whatever I said was always like up against whatever he said, and she would always believe him, or always say, okay, well, he says it should be done this way, or, and so I felt like in lots of ways my voice wasn't heard. And that's a story I took on. It's like, oh, well, I'm not good enough. I love my brother. I never resented him. I know some people in that situation would, but I never did. But I always felt, wow, he's amazing. He can do anything, and I'm just mediocre, and, I just plod along. That's the story I told myself, because that is kind of how it showed up growing up, So I was taught love, and I had parents that gave me a lot of love and unconditional love, and allowed me to be who I was and didn't have to put on masks and be someone different. But it still was like, oh, well, hang on, before you can go and do this, let me ask, because my brother was 4 years older, so let me go and ask your brother if he thinks that would be all right for you to do that too. So, but that came from her lack of, her programming, where she wanted to always check in with a male energy to see if, I could do this or that. And that's the old programming of the male in control. And we go to that male energy. And I think that's why I defaulted to my male energy my masculine energy, I should say, a lot of the times through life, because I always felt they were heard. When you're in your masculine energy, you're heard. You can stick up for yourself. And I think I also felt that being more in my masculine energy, I couldn't be told what to do, and I couldn't be, I felt more freer in some way to control my own life and do what I wanted to do. So, and that, I won't say, this is for another video, it's not for this one, but I could definitely do another video on how that actual story that imprinted on me created for the rest of my life till now, till recently, maybe till 6 months ago, how it was hard for me to let males in, to let the male energy in, through fear of being overtaken and controlled again, or instead of it, because there's a difference between control and supported, and I really had to learn that to let males in, with that male energy, you can do that and be supported, but not be taken over, not be controlled, things like that. So so that's a whole other story, but I just wanted to give you an example, a little bit of how that, how an imprinted story in me has carried through life. And I know many people, everyone has their own stories that they need to collapse and really just come from being the observer and collapse those and create another story from positivity, or just the story of that story is not real anymore and this is who I am in my truth. Not have a story. If you want to call it a story being in your truth, call it a story being in truth, but you don't need another story. So all right, I'll leave it there, and peace out. Love to you all. I love you. Take care. Bye.